Coming up on the show, the risks involved in using credit cards. We take a look at some of the risks that we'll have to prepare for, especially when the country is transiting into a more e-commerce based society. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Business PNG, your weekly business news and updates. First up, we take a look at the issues surrounding government's move to undertake the controversial UBS loan. The 3 billion kina loan obtained by the government to acquire shares in Oil Search has sparked concerns from various sectors of society, and so the Ombudsman Commission is currently investigating the matter to find out whether proper procedures were followed in obtaining the loan, which has already been signed. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has stated that documents and procedures undertaken for the loan will be presented to Parliament. Meanwhile, the deal between Interoil and Total on the El Cantlo project in the Gulf province has been inked. However, Oil Search has disputed the deal, bringing another twist to the issue.
It has been an interesting 2 weeks for the government of Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. The highs and lows stemming from the sacking of 2 senior ministers, William Dummer as Petroleum Minister and Don Pollier as Treasurer. Both are members of coalition parties in the government. Both were removed from key positions of power in a decision that has sparked widespread public debate. The story took a new twist after the sacking. From what appeared initially as a political decision, a debate over financial intricacies and legal procedures has ensued. Former Treasurer Don Pollier went public days later with details of a 3 billion kina loan, which the government obtained from the Swiss banking giant UBS AG to buy shares in Oil Search.
It's a very important decision. It is one that significantly affects the country's economy. Regardless of whatever said, the fact remains. And it never went through the system of decision making. The Department of Treasury does not know about that. I did not know about this as Treasurer. As former Treasurer, I never know about that. So it was a paper that came not through the government systems. It came from outside the government systems.
Pollier's argument remains that the 3 billion kina loan adds to Papua New Guinea's total debt of some 8 billion kina. Speaking to MTV, Pollier said he refused to sign off on the loan because he viewed it as a decision that was not in the national interest. A decision, he says, would have serious consequences for Papua New Guinea's economy.
I've got a fiscal responsibility act. I've got a medium-term debt management and fiscal management strategies. And because I know that we put those things in place, those policies in place, the law in place, in 2002 and 2003. And when we started to do those work, we saw the economy starting to improve. And we achieved those to a painstaking approach. And I wanted to maintain that because those are things a good, very healthy culture.
While Pollier's arguments appear sound, the Prime Minister has also responded in kind with a series of strong statements defending the loan. From the PM, the loan will not increase debt levels, that debt levels will in fact be reduced, and that the loan is being obtained outside of government accounts, meaning it will have an impact on the general economy.
That is about the limits on the debt to GDP, which is the 35% we are talking about. Now, we were still within the limit when we had 1.6 billion loan to the Arabs. Now, our loan has come down, so how can it go beyond that? Our loan has really come down from 1.6 down to 1.2. So I can't see the logic behind the argument that all of a sudden your loan exposure has gone up. All our experts, including recent analysis by the ANZ economists, have indicated to us that our limits, our loan exposure is very much limited to well below 35% of GDP.
The government clearly sees this as a suitable deal. Oil Search clearly likes the arrangement, but as I say, you'd have to ask the question, does the government need to be borrowing a lot of money to be buying shares in private business anyway? And yes, it would have been nice if the government had been able to retain the Oil Search shares through that period and maybe to have sold it to IPIC or to anyone else for the $8 price rather than having effectively sold it for only less than half that.
At a recent business meeting hosted by the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce and ANZ, discussing the 2014 Asia-Pacific Economic Outlook, ANZ economist Daniel Wilson stated that Papua New Guinea is going through a good current account deficit. This deficit is an investment and savings deficit. Therefore, this investment the government is making may possibly bring forth good results.
So I think it's important to note that although they've been borrowing a little bit more over these past 2 years, if we look at a longer term trend, we have debt to GDP that kind of peaked around 72%, and it's fallen over the past number of years to about 30%. That's a
great result.
That's a fantastic result, yes. Fantastic, yeah. And we'll see debt to GDP rise a little bit over 2014, but it's still at a very low level when we compare it to other developing economies.
The government's decision has also drawn strong criticism from government think tank, the National Research Institute. In a statement re-released last week, academics Charles Yala and August Sanida argued that the loan had been sought outside the government's fiscal management laws and governance structures. They also argued that the loan challenges the concept and the validity of the sovereign wealth in that it channels LNG proceeds away from the sovereign wealth funds. They have also brought to the fore the long-held view that government should refrain from becoming directly involved in business activities.
I think it's a statement coming from our academics who should be researching the facts before they come out and make public pronouncements like that. It is sad to see commentators like our academics who have no experience in the financial management area or the economy to make just general comments about the economy and about facts that they have got no experience, no expertise. And I think I question their motives, why they are making statements.
In new developments in the course of the week, the Ombudsman Commission announced it was going to examine the loan arrangements. As the probe begins, senior government officials confirmed that the Oil Search shares have been issued to the Independent Public Business Corporation, making it the single largest shareholder in Oil Search.
Welcome back. You're watching Business PNG. As Papua New Guinea is now moving into electronic commerce, the risks involved need to be made known of beforehand. Although it is very much uncommon today, transactions made electronically, especially online, are expected to eventually become popular. As business activity grows in the country, more people are now engaged with people from overseas and are also purchasing goods online or using credit or debit cards. Now, every change or transition in society comes with its own set of challenges, and surely the move into e-commerce is faced with risks. Credit and debit card frauds occur worldwide, and those who are involved in these corrupt practices can take every opportunity on those who are not particularly aware of the risks. With PNG moving away from a paper-based commercial system to electronic commerce, the risks involved need to be made aware of.
We had a judgment against one of those perpetrators 1 week ago, might be 2 weeks ago now, and that was one of the first in PNG where someone in PNG had actually been charged and convicted for perpetrating credit card or credit fraud, personal identity theft fraud. There's certainly incidents overseas, but whilst it does happen in PNG, many of the larger scams or frauds are really undertaken by overseas international crime gangs who steal the data and sell that data to other crime gangs.
Transactions made using credit cards or related services in purchasing goods electronically is very much uncommon in PNG today, but it is expected to eventually become popular as the transition continues.
Electronic shopping, for that matter, is not restricted to the private organizations alone. Right? Classically, when we say e-shopping or a concept of e-store or a web store, we might think that private organizations primarily related to apparels or even valuable items like medicines or food supplements or even software for that matter, which is being sold online. We classically think about that, But if you look intensively, we are able to understand that public sector organizations as well as banking organizations are doing a lot of product and service transactions online.
And ensuring that people are aware that it isn't just the card transaction itself, it's the whole e-commerce where there's greater education and awareness required, because PNG is now moving to that next level of e-commerce. At the moment we've been becoming familiar with internet banking, card banking, purchasing on the internet, but more and more stores are going to be in PNG undertaking acquisition or purchase of goods or services using internet banking platforms, and that's where the e-commerce and the gateways that banks have to offer will become very, very important.
Many Papua New Guineans are now getting involved in business and engaging with people from overseas. And today, you don't need a checkbook to conduct a business transaction. It can all be done online or electronically using credit cards.
The main difference between the debit card and the credit card is a credit card, as I say, it's a line of credit, and then the bank charges you interest on any of that credit that you access, whereas with our BSB Visa debit card and the MasterCard debit card, it is actually a debit card where you're accessing your own funds.
Now let's face it, every change or transition comes with challenges, and e-commerce certainly has challenges in varying dimensions. As Papua New Guinea ventures into it, challenges and risks will be part of it. Awareness and education for its use is vital to prevent any inconveniences. With incidents of fraud during the use of the previous paper-based system in PNG, one can only hope that these practices are not carried over to the world of e-commerce.
Credit card fraud is worldwide increasing exponentially in PNG because we've been in a payment system which has predominantly been paper-based, as in cheques in the past. We haven't necessarily been exposed to a lot of the fraud which does get perpetrated by local and international fraudsters using various credit card and other scams. We have had in PNG a high incidence of paper-based fraud where people produce cheques which are fraudulent, forge signatures, replicate cheques and are able to get value using those particular fraud instruments for cheques. As it is now with the increasing proliferation of electronic transactions, those fraudsters are now moving to the credit card frauds.
The 2014 Economic Crime Survey has concluded that the top 5 forms of economic crime in PNG are asset misappropriation, bribery and corruption, human resource fraud, procurement fraud, and accounting fraud. The survey recommends for political intervention in terms of introducing fraud policies.
We see members of the business community supporting the anti-corruption movement and asking us to work even harder towards changing the situation. But in reality, the business community is faced with greedy, criminal-minded people who use their official offices to gain benefits from them for themselves. So the examples that you would give would be at the higher level, granting of exemptions from tax, granting exemptions from import duty. You would talk about the bribes people may pay in order to get licenses, to get control of certain lands.
It also suggests for better governance structure within corporate bodies and implementation of strict procedures and guidelines.
Over and over again, we find evidence of corruption impacting on the lives of everybody in Papua New Guinea, including business. And these are the challenges that we still face, and the challenges that we invite the whole community to take a stand against so that we can change it.
As Papua New Guineans move into using credit cards and as more foreigners come into PNG and make business transactions, the risks involved and the security measures in place need to be made known.
Banks are not in the practice of sending out emails unsolicited to customers asking them to confirm their details. Therefore, on our website of other banks, we will always say, do not respond to any of these hoax emails. The same applies with credit cards, and there'll be advertisements in the papers from time to time. Do not respond to any hoax emails regarding credit cards or any electronic banking such as internet banking. A credit card, because it does store value, it stores your cash in that particular account, is very, very important from a security perspective. The same as you wouldn't give anyone your wallet, you don't give anyone your card.
So if you have a debit card or credit card, or eventually have one, be conscious of the risks involved and take necessary precautionary measures to avoid any regrets. The world is getting smaller through e-commerce, and so being prepared to cope with the challenges that go with it is key to preventing inconveniences and disharmony in society. As more business activity is introduced in PNG, more challenges arise for various sectors of the economy. Electricity is a necessity for businesses and so needs to be maintained at all times. Unfortunately, this has not been the case in the country. The demand for electricity in the country is ever increasing, and some efforts are being made now to meet this demand. Last week, PNG Power signed a new power project deal with a German company to boost power capacity in the country to meet the demand. There are also other plans by the government to increase capacity in the energy sector.
PNG Power Limited has signed a 231 million kina power grid development project, which will meet the increasing power supply demand in the nation's capital. The management signed an agreement with German company Fischner Gimb last week concerning the project. The 3-year project will be funded by the Asian Development Bank and the PNG government. Acting CEO Chris Bice said that the demand for electricity had grown over the past 5 years from 4% to 6%.
PPL understands its responsibilities to its customers, and therefore we need to upgrade our existing aging facilities so that we are able to cater for this boom. And that is why the government has come to our assistance by obtaining a soft loan for the development of the Port Moresby Power Grid project.
Bice said the feasibility studies were carried out a few years ago with the review tender documentation process to meet the international standards. He said Fischner would be involved in the procurement, tendering, installation and the commissioning of the project, plus the training of PNG Power staff. The project will cover 6 sub-projects, including the construction of a new substation at Kila Kila, installation of compensators for Boroko and Konodobu, improvement of a 11 kilovolt distribution network, a program to minimize energy wastage, and the replacement of aging equipment. The Kila Kila substation will provide electricity supply to about 3,000 households. The substation will also take some load of the current substations and extend the Port Moresby system. The news of this multi-million kina contract comes amidst turbulent times for PNG Power. From the sacking of John Tangit to claims of mismanagement of funds by the former CEO and allegations that the power provider may be facing financial crisis, a claim that has been denied by the acting CEO and the Minister for Public Enterprise and State Investment, Ben Maika.
I have not received any formal advice on the situation of the company, so I cannot comment. As far as I'm concerned, PNG Power is doing all right. Until I get a formal advice, which to date I have not received.
Another plan in the pipeline by the government to increase power supply in the country is a proposed deal between PNG and the Indonesian government, where regions such as Vanimo, Wewak and Madang could draw on excess hydropower from across the border.
The cooperation between PLN, which is the state power company in Indonesia, and PNG Power to enter into a power purchase agreement that would see the delivery of power from the Jayapura grid into Vanimo, eventually to Aitape, and then link up into Sepik.
Many, however, have criticized this move, saying the country doesn't need to import electricity from other countries when PNG has the capacity to produce its own power.
You wouldn't really need to be importing large quantities of power, though, for PNG in the longer term, in that Papua New Guinea is a country with immense quantities of natural renewable energies.
Alternative distributors of energy are considered because the demand for electricity by businesses and households is increasing. PNG's total power demand is expected to triple from 500 megawatts to 1,500 megawatts in 10 years, although at the moment, the limited capacity and aging infrastructure are not able to meet the increasing demand.
And that's all we have for you tonight. For any comments or suggestions, or for any information that you would like to share with us, email us on the address now shown on your screen. For more business news, or if you would simply like to view this episode again, visit the MTV website. That's mtv.com.pg/business. Also, don't forget to connect with us using our Facebook or Twitter page. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Dennis Orere, and this is Business PNG.